ASMR scary story. Once again, I've posted a link in the description to the original poster from the No Sleep Reddit. This is titled, "You See the Craziest Things as a Small Town Cop." Despite what my browser history says, I had never seen this many tentacles before. It was 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, so I had a pretty good buzz going when I was interrupted by a phone call. I hate it when the phone rings. My job is so much easier when that doesn't happen. "Look outside," a frantic voice yelled before I could introduce myself as town sheriff. Calm the F down," I answered in my best attempt to sound soothing. "Where are you?" "It doesn't matter," she screamed back. "Look outside anywhere." That probably wasn't a good sign. Was there any way that could have been a good sign? No. Absolutely not. I pulled the Colt Python out of its holster because no one had told me I couldn't use a .357 Magnum as a surface weapon and ran outside. I love living in big sky country because an unproven firmament reminds me that the universe just doesn't give a shit if I live or die. I think that's beautiful. But something was different today. The sky was purple. It shouldn't be purple. That's the wrong color. Damn it. Worse still, a black cloud was descending with the speed of a crashing 747. Soon it was close enough to see that it wasn't a cloud. It was a mass of writhing tentacles. Each one had to be over 19 feet thick, and there were at least 13 of them. I wanted to puke then and there, but I swallowed the chunks right back down. It was headed for Mrs. Olson's coffee house. I loved Mrs. Olson, and I liked her lukewarm coffee. I ran. The street was eerily silent and charged, just like the moment before a lightning bolt strikes. I could hear nothing other than my own boot strikes against the broken road. I knew I wasn't going to make it in time, but so much of our soul is defined by behavior in hopeless moments, and so I ran on. One thick, 100-foot-long tentacle shot forth and spiraled around the building as the black mass lowered itself to the ground. My lungs burned. I was still too far away. I heard Mrs. Olson scream. The mass became part of the earth as an impossible black emptiness pooled into existence where there had once been an open field. One end of the tentacle fell into the void. The other wrapped further around Mrs. Olson's house. Then it squeezed. Every window exploded as the entire structure was wrenched from its foundations. I stopped running and cowered in the street. That's when Mrs. Olson appeared in a broken window pane, apoplectic with fear. "Help me, Chief Barzani." Her arms were covered in blood. "I don't want to die alone." The gargantuan tentacle wrapped around the house once more. I pulled out the Colt and fired, but it penetrated no deeper than a gerbil. An orca. A really big orca, even bigger than normal. I could have ran after Mrs. Olson, but at this point that would simply have meant following her into the abyss. She looked at me and understood that I wasn't going to help her. That was the last sensation she ever had. The black tentacles lurched again, reducing the walls to splinters and dragging the entire building into the hole. I watched the whole thing disappear into empty space and realized just how stupid we are for assuming that we'll survive any given day. The blackness swirled like a toilet, swallowing the remnants of a prune casserole, and very suddenly it was gone. The air was no longer charged, but the building was no longer there. It was quiet. I wandered over, dazed, to the shredded foundations. "Good morning, Chief," Clifford said as he staggered by adjusting his overalls. "Did someone finally buy the vacant lot?" I narrowed my eyes at him. "You don't remember Mrs. Olson's being here 30 seconds ago?" He stopped walking, then slowly turned to face me. Martha suddenly appeared on his left, sneering enough to proudly display her lone remaining tooth. "We don't talk about Mrs. Olson anymore. Remember, Chief?" Drool rolled down her chin. I'm not gonna lie, she gives me a case of the wilty nipples in the best of times, but that warning was downright creepy. This is why I never take off my sunglasses. I knew that she was gauging my reaction, and I didn't want her to read me. Right, I responded. This lot has been empty for years. Martha and Clifford both nodded as I pissed my pants just a little. Then I walked back across the street to the police station and drank 10 beers. What a Tuesday. I don't usually leave the station until 8 p.m. so that I can go to bed shortly after getting home. This makes me feel less lonely. So I was more than a little irritated when the station door opened at 7:59 p.m. Police spent a lot of time wishing that emergencies were scheduled more conscientiously. A little boy walked in who I've never seen before. He was around 10 years old and ghostly pale with a shock of alabaster hair. I could actually feel my balls curdle right past my teeth as he cruised up to my desk. He had no pupils in his eyes, they were just as white as his hair. I opened my mouth to speak, but he cut me off. I just wanted to tell you that you aren't crazy, Chief Versani. He didn't smile. Oh, thank you, son. I knew that I should have felt bad about thinking a child is straight up creepy, but I did not. Did you need help from me, or were you just about to leave my office forever? He cocked his head. I thought you should know it's going to stay here as long as it has a living host. I'm telling you because everyone else would rather give up. I nodded like he was speaking normally, instead of making me wince. He smiled, and it was just so sad. Then he turned and walked up the wall, flipped upside down, and strolled across the ceiling, paced down the other wall, and walked out the door. When I started breathing again 30 seconds later, I realized that I had been holding the barrel of my Colt in a white-knuckle grip. When I followed him into the dark Montana night, I found myself alone once more. What else could I do? I packed up and went home. Tuesday